Heavy curtains of rain fell over the city, while Detective Ricardo felt a chill far colder than the biting wind that night. A woman's scream echoed through the darkness, a scream filled with terror. Ricardo ran, his flashlight cutting through the inky blackness until he found a bizarre scene. A young woman, eyes wide, floating a few inches above the ground, over a circle of burning candles. And then, a dark shadow moved behind her. Who or what was holding her aloft? And more importantly, what did that shadow want? The rain fell as if the sky were weeping leaden tears, heavy and cold. Detective Ricardo, a man who saw ghosts on every dark corner of the city, felt a shiver that wasn't just from the cutting wind. It was a bone-chilling cold, a chill that came from a place far deeper than the night's simple temperature. A scream ripped through the darkness, sharp, thin, the cry of a terrified woman. It was a sound that clung to the throat, leaving a bitter taste of fear. Ricardo ran, the small light of his flashlight a stubborn pinpoint against the immense blackness of the night. And then he saw her. A young woman with long black hair spread across the wet ground, floated a few inches from the earth, her eyes wide as if about to pop from their sockets. She was suspended above a circle of burning candles, their flames dancing in a frantic, almost furious dance. It was a scene from a horror movie, but Ricardo knew it was very, very real. Fear tightened his chest, cold and heavy like the ceaseless rain. The young woman, Isabel, was pale, her lips colorless, silent. She seemed frozen in time, trapped in an invisible web of horror. But Ricardo noticed something different, something beyond the obvious terror of the situation. There was a strange calmness in her eyes, a deep sadness that went beyond immediate fear. It was as if she knew this was going to happen. Suddenly, a shadow. A dark, formless shadow that moved behind Isabel, like a blot of ink on the wall of night. It wasn't the natural shadow cast by the rain and dim lighting. This was a different shadow, alive, malevolent. It seemed to feed on the candlelight, growing with each second, each gust of wind. Ricardo felt a breathless fear, an ancestral, primal fear that made him want to shrink and disappear. Who or what was it? What dark force held Isabel suspended in the air? Luna, the witch, arrived minutes later, her breath ragged, her blonde hair darkened by the rain. She was different, unlike anyone Ricardo had ever met. There was a mystery in her eyes, an ancient and profound knowledge that left him disconcerted. Luna looked at Isabel, and what Ricardo saw in her eyes was compassion? Or was it something more complicated, something he couldn't yet understand? Luna approached the floating young woman with a caution that contrasted with the urgency of the situation. She chanted something low, in an ancient language that seemed to echo from the depths of time. The words were like a silken thread, weaving a protective web against the encroaching darkness. The air around them vibrated, charged with energy, with magic. The shadow reacted, growing, lengthening, its undefined forms becoming more menacing, more grotesque. It stretched towards Luna, like a viscous black tentacle seeking prey. Ricardo felt the temperature drop even further, a cold that penetrated to his very bones. The air became heavy, suffocating, filled with a malevolent energy that almost paralyzed him. Luna, however, remained firm. Her movements were fluid, precise, filled with a strength that emanated from within her, as powerful as the darkness surrounding her. She was like a centuries-old tree, her roots firmly planted in the earth, resisting the force of the gale. However, Ricardo noticed something in her eyes. Fear. Genuine fear, but disguised beneath a layer of strength and determination. And he noticed something even more frightening. The shadow wasn't just a malevolent being. It was hungry. Hungry for something Isabel possessed. Something Luna also seemed to possess. Ricardo had never seen anything like it. He felt a different kind of fear than before. A fear that mingled with a deep curiosity. A feeling that he was about to uncover a secret far greater than he could bear. The struggle between light and shadow, between witchcraft and the unknown, was only just beginning. And Ricardo, the skeptical detective, was in the middle of it all. And for the first time, he wasn't sure where to run. The shadow lunged, swift and terrifying, like an invisible serpent striking at Luna. A silent scream escaped Ricardo's lips, trapped by the tension of the moment. Luna, however, didn't move like someone fleeing. Her movements were precise, each gesture charged with a power Ricardo had never imagined existed. Her fingers danced in the air, tracing ancient symbols in the humid air, symbols that seemed to burn with an inner light. The rain itself seemed to divert its course, as if respecting the power emanating from the witch. But the shadow was relentless. It writhed, shifting shape, sometimes resembling a famished animal, sometimes a nightmare monster. Its black tentacles seemed to want to swallow Luna whole, absorb her energy, her life. The air grew heavier, and Ricardo felt a pressure in his ears, a sensation that his lungs were being crushed. He was trapped, immobilized by fear, by the astonishment at the supernatural battle unfolding before him. Then Isabel groaned. A low sound, almost inaudible, but it cut through the silence of the night like a sharp blade. Her floating body began to rotate slowly, like a water wheel caught in an invisible current. The shadow, momentarily distracted, hesitated, as if something had diverted its attention from its main focus. Luna seized the opening. With a swift and precise gesture, she unleashed a burst of energy, an intense light that struck the shadow squarely. The creature reacted with even greater fury. It roared, not with a sound the ears could grasp, but with a vibration that ran through Ricardo's entire body, causing a sharp pain in his head. The battle intensified. The air trembled, the candles extinguished all at once, leaving only darkness and rain as witnesses. Ricardo felt like a grain of sand in a cosmic storm, insignificant in the face of such immense and terrifying power. Suddenly, a new element entered the scene. A different light, a golden, warm light, emanated from Isabel's body, contradicting the oppressive darkness of the night. The light seemed to fight against the shadow, pushing it back, weakening it. Ricardo realized, with a shock, that Isabel wasn't just a victim. She was the source of a powerful energy, an energy that was connected to the fight against the shadow creature. Luna, perceiving the change, adjusted her strategy. Instead of fighting the shadow directly, she began to channel Isabel's energy, guiding it, amplifying it. The two women, the witch and the floating young woman, seemed to merge into a single being of light, an unwavering force against the darkness surrounding them. The shadow, under the combined attack, began to diminish, to lose its strength. But the fight wasn't over. The creature, before dissipating completely, launched one last desperate attack. A wave of cutting cold struck Ricardo, throwing him violently against the sodden ground. He felt a searing pain, a terrifying emptiness. Everything went dark for a moment. When Ricardo opened his eyes, Luna was over him, her arms firm and protective. Isabel, now standing, firm and secure on the wet earth, breathed deeply, as if recovering from a great exertion. The shadow had disappeared completely, leaving only the strong smell of rain and a heavy silence, charged with a strange, almost palpable energy. Luna looked at Ricardo with a complex expression, mixing concern with a profound mystery. The fight was over, but the secret that linked Luna, Isabel, and the malevolent shadow remained shrouded in mystery, a latent threat. The rain didn't cease, and Ricardo felt the night was far from over. A new dawn would bring new questions and new dangers, and he, the skeptical detective, knew he was only beginning to understand what hid between two worlds. The rain fell as if the sky were weeping heavy, cold, leaden tears, while the black shadow stretched towards Luna like a viscous, hungry tentacle. The air grew heavy, suffocating, filled with a malevolent energy that almost paralyzed Ricardo. He felt fear, cold and sharp as a knife blade, and a deep, unsettling curiosity. What was that dark creature? What did it want from Isabel? And what did Luna hide in her eyes, beyond the strength and determination? Luna moved like a dance, her fingers weaving ancient symbols in the humid air, symbols that glowed with an inner light that defied the darkness. But the shadow was relentless, changing shape every second, sometimes resembling a famished animal, sometimes a nightmare monster, its black tentacles seeming to want to swallow the witch whole. Ricardo felt trapped, immobilized by fear, by the astonishment at the supernatural battle unfolding before him, a fight between light and darkness, between ancestral magic and an unknown force. Then Isabel groaned. A low sound, almost inaudible, but it cut through the silence of the night like a sharp blade. Her floating body began to rotate slowly, like a water wheel caught in an invisible current. The shadow, momentarily distracted, hesitated. It was as if something had diverted its attention from its main focus, creating a breach in its fury. Luna, with the agility of a panther, seized the opportunity. A swift and precise gesture, and she unleashed a burst of energy, an intense light that struck the shadow squarely, a ray of light cutting through the darkness. The creature roared, not with an audible sound, but with a vibration that ran through Ricardo's body, causing a sharp pain in his head. The battle intensified. The air trembled, the candles went out, leaving only darkness and rain as silent witnesses to that titanic struggle. Ricardo felt like a grain of sand in a cosmic storm, insignificant in the face of such immense and terrifying power. But then, something wonderful happened. A different light, a golden, warm light, emanated from Isabel's body, contradicting the oppressive darkness of the night. It was as if the light itself had been born from the young woman's soul, defying the darkness. Ricardo realized with astonishment that Isabel wasn't just a victim, but the source of a powerful energy, an energy that was connected to a struggle far greater than he had imagined. Luna, perceiving the change, adjusted her strategy. Instead of fighting the shadow directly, she began to channel Isabel's energy, guiding it, amplifying it. The two women, the experienced witch and the floating young woman, merged, seemed to become one, in a magical bond of light, an unshakable shield against the darkness. Their strength was a double strength, as strong as the union of two hearts. The shadow, under the combined attack, began to diminish, to lose its strength, like a candle slowly extinguishing. But the creature didn't give up without a fight. Before dissipating completely, it launched one last desperate attack, a wave of cutting cold that struck Ricardo, throwing him violently against the sodden ground. He felt a searing pain, a terrifying emptiness. Everything went dark for a moment. When Ricardo opened his eyes, Luna was over him, her arms firm and protective. Isabel, now standing, secure and strong on the wet earth, breathed deeply, as if recovering from a great exertion. The shadow had disappeared completely, leaving only the strong smell of rain and a heavy silence, charged with a strange, almost palpable energy. The fear was still strong, but mixed with immense admiration for the two women who had faced evil so heroically. Luna looked at Ricardo with a complex expression, a mixture of concern and profound mystery. The fight was over, but the secret that linked Luna, Isabel, and the malevolent shadow remained shrouded in mystery, a latent threat. The rain continued, incessant, and Ricardo felt that the night was far from over. A new dawn would bring new questions and new dangers, dangers that were connected to the secrets between two worlds, and he, the skeptical detective, knew he was only beginning to understand the truth that hid between two worlds. The adventure, far from being over, was only just beginning. The rain finally stopped, but a heavy silence, charged with a strange energy, hung in the air. Ricardo, still dazed from the shadow's blow, leaned on Luna, feeling the warmth of her body against his. Isabel, pale but with bright eyes, seemed exhausted but victorious. The shadow had disappeared, but a feeling of unease persisted, like a dormant threat waiting for the right moment to awaken. Luna helped Ricardo to his feet, her gaze fixed on his face, sincere concern in her eyes, mixed with a secret that he sensed but couldn't decipher. She said something in a low voice, almost a whisper in her ancient tongue, and Ricardo felt a shiver run down his spine. They weren't words of relief, but of warning. Suddenly, an intense light emanated from Isabel's necklace, the same necklace she had worn since childhood. A necklace that, Ricardo now realized, pulsed with a strange and powerful light, far more intense than the glow observed earlier. The golden light intensified, growing until it flooded the entire area around them, projecting strange shadows that moved as if they had a life of their own, displaying strange and frightening figures in forms that rapidly changed and contorted. It was a kaleidoscope of disturbing images, distorted faces, and unnameable creatures. Then, as suddenly as it began, the light ceased, leaving Ricardo, Luna, and Isabel plunged into a darkness deeper and more frightening than the one that had enveloped them before. A violent tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. A roar echoed, coming from somewhere distant, but seeming to vibrate within the earth itself. Ricardo felt the ground open beneath his feet. A black abyss, which seemed to extend to hell, opened right in front of them, threatening to swallow the trio if they didn't react immediately. From the abyss, a voice echoed, thick and hoarse, a voice that carried the weight of centuries of wickedness, so deep and frightening that even Ricardo, who had faced dangerous criminals and witnessed horrific crimes, trembled with fear. The voice was hoarse, and with each word spoken, the glimmer of something strange moved through the depths of the abyss. A colossal and horrible creature, indefinable and terrifying, began to emerge from that darkness. Fear invaded Ricardo with brutal force, more overwhelming than anything he had ever felt. He had never seen anything so terrifying. It was a force of darkness of unimaginable proportions, the personification of pure evil, a being that seemed to feed on the fear of mortals. The deep, hoarse voice, echoing from the depths of the abyss, then said, "You failed to stop me. I am back, and now you will pay." Luna, her eyes wide, held Ricardo's hand tightly, while Isabel, even though trembling, kept her gaze fixed on the monstrous creature approaching. The creature extended a long, dark tentacle towards them, and a wave of deadly cold spread everywhere. Ricardo, Luna, and Isabel froze in a defensive position, the colossal creature advancing, while a second, even deeper darkness seemed to emanate from its bowels, threatening to engulf them completely. The fight for survival was far from over, and the battle between good and evil was about to enter a new and terrible stage. The question that hung in the air was, would they survive the imminent attack of this new, terrible threat? And, more importantly, what was the true power they faced, and where did it come from? The answer was lost in the darkness, waiting to be revealed in a next unpredictable episode.